All right, what is up, y'all? I am here to talk about James Gunn's Superman. Is it any good? Yeah, that's all right. It's a fine movie. It's not spectacular. Like, it's not like Iron Man, like, it's not like it doesn't have the kind of plot and cohesive nature of that sort of movie. This movie is just like, boom, you're there, and like all this stuff is happening. And it's kind of cool. I mean, in that sense, because something is always happening. Like the movie is just like it takes no breaks to talk about its plot and show where it's going. It's just action. This happens, that happens, this happens, and it keeps going and going. It doesn't really give you a whole lot of breathing room to actually digest your thoughts and feelings. It's just a very immersive and encapsulating experience. Encapsulating. I think that's a word. Maybe I may have made that up, but it's a good movie nonetheless. Like I said, though, it's not spectacular. It's not. It's not on the same level as like a prestige superhero movie. It's not on the same level as like Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. It's not on the same level as the first Iron Man, like I said. Um, it's probably on the same level as something like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And for me, I think that's a pretty decent movie. I don't really have any problems with it. It's kind of a filler movie, from getting from point A to point B, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or Guardians of the Galaxy 2 to the Avengers and whatever. So it's entertaining. The Superman actor, David Cornsweet, I think it's his name, or David Cornsweet. Sounds like corn is wet. Interesting last name, but he's a good Superman. Now, is he dramatically great? Like, is he like the be all end all Superman? I don't really know. To be honest with you, I think that a lot of the Superman actors, they always look the part really well, but in terms of delivering a performance where I'm like, oh my god, that was incredible. Um, yeah, there's nothing too standoutish about really any of the Supermans. The only one that I think holds weight as to being like the greatest Superman portrayal of all time is Christopher Reeves. And I think a lot of that just is more about nostalgia and the fact that that guy perfectly uh, embodied what an American Boy Scout superhero would look like and be. So he's a great, but it's not like you can't take Christopher Reeve's Superman and put him up to like, let's say, like Daniel Day Lewis and There Will Be Blood. Like, obviously, very different characters, but one performance is crazy and absolutely balls to the walls. Just like you can't take your eyes off him. Though I guess you could say the same thing about Christopher Reeves. Uh, all I'm saying is there's just different levels of acting. And Superman, as long as you're the good old fashioned Boy Scout that just wants to do right and wants to do good, and you look the part, I think it's a pretty easy role to nail. So there's nothing spectacular, in my opinion, about any of the Superman portrayals. It's just people that get it right to a greater extent than the other. Henry Cavill's was obviously a lot more broody. He was a much more broody Superman, in a way that kind of humanizes him a bit. But then, there's that room for him becoming too much of an edgelord, which is a problem. You don't want Superman to be an edgelord. You don't want anybody to be an edgelord. In fact, that's not a good person to be, in my opinion. But David Corn is wet. I should just call him David Corn is wet. David does a good job. He's a good Superman. He does come off as like that Boy Scout. He comes off as the kind of guy that you believe would be Superman. Now, does he do anything necessarily super? Not really. He kind of gets his ass kicked a lot of the movie. And the movie establishes that right off the bat. It says that this guy lost his first battle. So, they definitely set a precedent for this guy, getting his ass kicked throughout the movie. It does feel like it's a movie that's in between a trilogy. Like we don't get really any sort of introduction or backstory to this character as far as like an origin story is concerned. They do kind of expand a little bit on where he comes from and who his parents are and what his relationships are and whatnot. But honestly, it's Superman. Like if you don't know who Superman is and where he comes from and what he does, you probably live under a rock, or you live in a cave in the Middle East with no TV. So there's that. All the performances across the board are very good in the sense that they're cast very well. Everybody looks the part. Same with David. He definitely looks the part, like I said. In terms of anything spectacular, like is there a performance that stands out? I would say Nicholas Hoult stands out pretty well. He gets to do some pretty evil stuff. He does some evil shit in the movie. Not a lot. Not like he's an absolute despicable human being, though I guess he kind of is. But like in the sense of like, does he have any moments where he really gets to show how bad he is? He has like one moment that's like pretty good. Everything else is fine, but his performance does stand out because he does seem to embody a very evil guy, a very conflicted person. The only problem with his character is that, and this is kind of a greater extent to the rest of the movie, the writing is okay. James Gunn is very good in the sense that he's going to give you a lot of very cool visuals. He always casts his movies very well. Like all the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, all those characters are cast really well. This movie, like I said, is also cast very well. All the characters definitely look the part. But in the sense that, like, does anyone have any sort of standout moments? Are there any moments where they go through like a character arc where they wrestle with something and there's these big defining moments for them? Yes and no. I'd say you could make that argument. It's just in the sense of things, there's nothing very grand about anything they do. Superman, like I said, he kind of always gets his ass kicked throughout the movie, and then he rises above that, in like the last 10 or 15 minutes. Lois Lane kind of goes through a character arc where like she loves Clark Kent. She knows he's Superman. She's debating on whether she wants to be with him or not. And then in the end, her heart is settled on being with this Superman. Nicholas Hoult just hates Superman. There's no character arc there. He just hates Superman the whole entire time. Some of the side characters were cast well. The guy who plays Jimmy Olsen, I've seen him in some things before. I think he's in The Righteous Gemstones. He's a pretty good comedic actor. He actually has some pretty interesting scenes that are sort of funny. Somehow he's like a heartthrob. Like women just love Jimmy Olsen for some reason, which I thought was kind of funny. Some people might find that cringe, but I found some humor in that. This guy is he's like he's this guy that like doesn't want to get all these girls and somehow does get all these girls. So like there's some humor in that. Like I said, some people might find it cringy. I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it was good. In terms of the plot, what is the movie about? We kind of covered it a little bit about Superman getting his ass kicked. You could literally just say that's the plot of the movie, and then in the last 10 or 15 minutes, he gets over that and becomes Superman. But basically, he's fighting Lex Luthor throughout this movie. He goes through a bunch of kind of similar beats. It's always he's fighting something, he gets his ass beat. It's something that Lex Luthor did. I mean, the plot's honestly, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I'm trying to think of the best way to sum it up, which would be the most simplest explanation. How would I put this? So Superman, he's fighting Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor has all these cronies that are fighting Superman that are kicking his ass. Lex Luthor wants to destroy Superman so that he can take over half a country, basically. They don't really explain that well, but that's true. Superman is basically fighting Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor hates Superman and he wants to own half a country, which kind of reminded me of like the real estate scheme in Christopher Reeve's Superman, where Lex Luthor is just this goofy real estate guy. This Superman can survive a black hole. Yeah, you're not wrong about that, chat. He does survive a black hole. Someone else in the movie, who I'm not going to spoil, or maybe I should spoil it. It's been about 2 weeks. There's a doppelganger of Superman. Spoilers. I just spoiled it before I said anything. Spoilers here. There's a doppelganger of Superman who is a clone from Lex Luthor, who Superman is fighting throughout the movie. That's part of the reason Superman keeps getting his ass kicked. The manner in which this doppelganger kicks Superman's ass, I didn't really mind it that much, but I could see why people would find it strange. Basically, Lex Luthor controls this doppelganger like a video game. He just says things like B12, A1, G7, and like the doppelganger just throws like random combinations at Superman, kicks his ass. So depending on your suspension of disbelief, you might love that or hate it or be neutral about it. I was neutral about it. Really, most of the flaws with this movie, I'm pretty neutral on. People said it was a little overstuffed with a lot of the side characters. The Justice Gang is in this movie. You got Hawk Girl, one of the Green Lanterns, and then Mr. Terrific, I think is his name. Yeah, Mr. Terrific. He is really good. I didn't mind anyone in the Justice Gang. I thought they were all fine. The Hawk Girl character leaves a little bit to be desired, but she's fine. I mean, people criticized her costume and said that she doesn't really do anything in the movie. But I didn't have any problems with her. I was like, whatever, she's fine. Isabel Merced is, a good actress. I think she's fine. What's this? He is vulnerable. Are you saying that Superman is vulnerable, chap? He certainly is vulnerable in this movie. He's definitely, like I said, he gets his ass kicked a lot. But yeah, so Superman is good. It's not the greatest superhero movie. I saw there were a lot of people who went to like one of the fan screenings before the movie came out. They said the movie was fantastic. One of the best superhero movies ever made. Keep in mind, James Gunn, who I like. I do like James Gunn. I know about all his controversies and all the things he's done in the past, especially about the kid jokes that some people did not like. I'm not for telling people what to do, and I'm not for people shutting people up. There are some things I won't say, but James Gunn definitely said some things that pissed a lot of people off in the past, which is why he got fired from Marvel initially. But what was I going to say? Jesus Christ, I'm rambling. It's a good movie. Oh, that's right. James Gunn. James Gunn is a good director, but keep in mind, he did say that The Flash was one of the greatest superhero movies ever made, which is certainly not. The Flash is not a great movie. It's okay. I would say at best, it's watchable and entertaining. But the best things about the Flash movie are Batman. That's it. Everything else is kind of annoying. I will give Ezra Miller this. When he sees his mom for the last time, that did make me tear up a little bit. But I digress. We're talking about Superman. James Gunn's Superman, or Superman's James Gunn, as I've heard before as well. It's a good movie. You should go watch it because it's very good. The chat just said, this Superman, he not trained with Batman and Wonder Woman yet. Not yet. No, he has not. We'll see that down the line depending on how well this movie does. I am all for giving James Gunn this universe. I would like to see what he does with it. I hope that he handles all the characters great. Like I said, the movie is good. I would go watch it because it does deliver on the things that you would want to see in a superhero movie. It does give you a lot of spectacle. has some romance in it, has a good Superman. Not great, but there is potential for him to be great. It's just going to depend on where the character goes from here. Um, Not the strongest story, but that's fine. I don't expect the strongest stories in all superhero blockbusters or all blockbusters regardless. The main thing I look for in a movie is when I sit down, can you keep me distracted for an hour and a half to 2 hours, keep me entertained, and not have me look at my phone? And if you can do that and keep my suspension of disbelief, at bay, then great. If you play around with me too much, it's not going to be good. Chat says, dude, I love Superman so much. It made me smile many times, and I think that's a great reaction to Superman. Look, you're not wrong. The movie made me smile too. I actually, like I said, I did enjoy this movie. As somebody that's looking at it through a critical lens, is it the greatest superhero movie ever made? No. But is it worth your time to go see? Yeah, I'd say it is. It is not without its problems, but it will keep you entertained. It will keep you happy. And look, the biggest thing I took away from it was that this Superman actually acted like a Superman. He was actually Superman. He did get his ass beat a lot of the movie. He did overcome that at the end. But yes, he did act like Superman. He was not broody like Henry Cavill. And look, I do like Henry Cavill. I think that guy just never got the opportunity to show us what he truly could have done with the character. But yes, if you like your Superman being like Superman, then this movie will make you happy. It did make me happy. Crypto. I didn't talk about crypto. This is something a lot of people were worried about. Crypto kind of makes the movie like it's a comic book movie, okay? It's a comic book movie, and this movie is very comic booky. It's not like a graphic novel, which sometimes those can be a little bit more grounded. Like when I think of graphic novels, the first thing that comes to my head is something like The Dark Knight Returns. Frank Miller, something like that. That's a little bit more adult, I suppose. The Superman movie is not. It's not adult, but like what I would compare it to is like imagine if like Pixar made a superhero movie. Mainly this is meant to entertain children, teenagers, but there are moments that adults can be invested in and be entertained by, and that's what some of the greatest Pixar movies have ever done. Is that they entertain children and adults. This movie very much leans into that. That doesn't mean that's a full-on kids movie. There's definitely things in here that adults can gravitate towards. What does the chat say? The Guardian of the Galaxy cast, they defended James Gunn. They did, rightfully so. I think that James Gunn should have never been fired from Marvel. And I think that was a big mistake. Like I said, I'm all for people saying whatever the hell they want. I don't care. Is it going to be my cup of tea sometimes? Probably not. But hey, who am I to tell someone what to say or do or what they think is funny? As long as you're not physically hurting anybody, I don't care. Another chat says, I was pleasantly surprised by Crypto. Genuinely made me miss my dog a few times. Yeah, no, he's a good character. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I was going into how Crypto kind of makes the movie a little bit more comic booky. But look, I appreciate that because we had a lot of very grounded and gritty superhero movies, which I'm not opposed to, but hey, a breath of fresh air is always appreciated. I think that Crypto did a good job. He was entertaining. He's a little asshole, he's a little asshole dog, but he was good. And he is a great director. Are you saying that James Gunn is a great director? He's made some great things. Is he in the same league as someone like Christopher Nolan? That's tough. That's a tough call. Very different stylistically. I think James Gunn is a great entertainer. He can make great entertainment. He can keep you greatly entertained. Is he going to make something like Schindler's List? Probably not. That's not his style. But was he a great director for this movie? I think Warner Brothers picked the best option they could. because anybody else that they would have gone with, like, look, it was either this or you listen to the Snyder Bros and you just, make all the Justice League movies that Zack Snyder wanted to make. And if we went down that route, we would have had a Batman get Lois Lane pregnant, die, and then Superman and Lois Lane help raise Batman's kid. You can look that up. That was one of Zack Snyder's plans. So don't know if audiences would have appreciated that much. So yeah, probably not the greatest choice there. But yeah, I think, like I said before, I think that James Gunn should get the ring to do what he wants, and let's see where it goes. I have my fingers crossed. I like the DC universe way more than I like Marvel, though I like the Marvel movies at times a lot more than the DC movies, because some of the stuff we got from DC were not very good. In fact, the last 6 DC movies that came out before Superman all bombed at the box office because guess what? Nobody was in for that anymore. So it's a good thing that they're getting things off to a fresh start, and they're going with someone they can trust. And I think that James Gunn could be trustworthy. He delivered a very entertaining, very OG sort of Superman movie where we're going back to the basics. Did you like this new Superman film or Man of Steel more? I think this is a real tough question. I have thought about this. I've never really made my thoughts totally vocalized or clear, though. So, you have 2 very different movies that can be appreciated for different things. I think watching the new Superman for me is a more enjoyable experience than watching Man of Steel. But I think Man of Steel is not a bad movie. I think that it's a Zack Snyder movie. So you're either going to like what Zack Snyder does or you're not. If you want, you're very traditional, very OG sort of Superman, you're going to watch what James Gunn put out. If you're looking for something that's going to be a little bit more challenging and make you ask a lot of questions and is a little bit more ambitious and some bigger questions, then yeah, Man of Steel would be the way to go. My gripe with Man of Steel is that it's a movie that's trying to Nolan Superman. Christopher Nolan, he had his very grounded approach to the Batman movies, which in context work. But Superman should not be grounded necessarily, in my opinion. Definitely an interesting contrast, says the chat. Solid answer. I 100% agree. Me and my homie had a big discussion on whether this one was better than the other or if they're just different vibes. I think that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. They're very much just different vibes. Superman is a feel-good movie. You're going to walk out of that and you're going to feel good. You're going to be, you're going to have a good time watching it. You're going to be entertained by the dog and the action and the heroism that's on display. And David Corn is wet. I can't say his name right. It always sounds like David's Corn is wet. His name is Corn Sweat, I think. But you're going to be very entertained by and very happy with his portrayal of Superman. It's a very OG portrayal. Henry Cavill's is very much a brawler, sort of like a military-esque sort of dude, which is fine. But I don't know if that necessarily is in the spirit of Superman. He looks like Superman. All our Supermen look like Supermen. They all look like Superman. Every Superman actor has essentially looked like Superman. So no complaints about the looks. Definitely had more fun with James Gunn, had more of a cinematic experience with Man of Steel. Yeah, I mean, Man of Steel probably has more scope in the sense that, they're trying to do a lot more grander things. I'm sure if you saw it in IMAX, it was probably like, oh my God, like especially the opening with the Krypton being destroyed and just like the very Shakespearean sort of performances. Yeah, that might be a good way to describe Man of Steel. It's a very Shakespearean kind of Superman. Like it's trying to be a lot more than what it is, I guess. Anyway, do you think Man of Steel was written worse than Superman or is just different? Well, Man of Steel has some things that I think are kind of disrespectful to what Superman is. And Superman, James Gunn's, is it's just not as cohesive in some spots. Like Lex's playing is very convoluted, but I can forget that because I'm very entertained by the movie itself. Like I'm just sitting there, I'm like, wow, what's gonna happen next? Crypto this, Superman this, he's fighting a giant monster. Oh my god. I'm just very entertained by everything that's going on. Man of Steel has some problems that are very disrespectful to the Superman lore that ironically try and get fixed in Batman versus Superman. But Batman versus Superman is a very controversial movie. The funny thing about Batman versus Superman is that it tries to fix all the problems in Man of Steel, and in doing so creates so many more problems than Man of Steel. And look, this is coming from someone who actually enjoys both Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. But I can acknowledge that both have some problems. If you had to be Superman in one of these universes, which would you be? Definitely James Gunn's, because the Superman in Zack Snyder's universe died, and I don't think that would feel very good. That guy took a fucking what was it? A spike through the torso when he fought Doomsday. He died. They gotta bring him back to life. I'm not interested in dying. At least the Superman and James Gunn's, he gets a little action. He gets to be a little romantic. He does get his ass beat a couple of times, but I mean, he doesn't die. Thank God. That would have been weird. Trying to do the death of Superman in 2 movies. It's probably one of the problems with Zack Snyder's Superman movie or his universe is he's far too ambitious. Though I can appreciate people who are ambitious. I'd rather see you be too ambitious than not ambitious enough. But James Gunn's super movie is also ambitious. He's also very ambitious in what he does. All right, look, y'all, I've actually been on here a lot longer than I thought I was going to be. Thanks for asking me these questions. It's nice chatting with you. If you message me or follow me, I might give you a follow back here. I gotta go through my followers and whatnot. But look, those were my thoughts on the Superman. I think that you should watch it, and it's a decent movie. It's not a perfect movie, but it's very good, and you'll be entertained by it. All right, have a great day, y'all. Enjoy it.